to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
Well, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. My name is Tom Dutta. I am the Quiet Warrior. I'm excited to have on the show today Mr. KEVIN Harrington. Hey, Kevin, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Tom. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you. You know, I was just kind of laughing in my mind. This week is all about sharks and raptors. I mean, talk about exciting times in our countries. Where are you calling us from, Kevin?
I'm in the good news is I've got a day home before I head out to Dubai. So I've been on the road for a couple of weeks. I got a day to change my suitcase and ramp up some supplies and back on the road again. So,
okay.
Yeah, I'm going to be in Amsterdam and Dubai coming up here for the next week or so. But you know, it's any week you just never know where. You know, could be India, it could be Dubai, it could be Sao Paulo, Brazil. It's lots of travel in all of our lives, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's pretty amazing, and I'm glad that you're grounded. And so let's get rolling. You know, Kevin, you know the narrative of the show. It's about the hero's journey. It's really about getting the audience into the journey. And I have many people show up on the show, and I like to say that the ones that I invite are egoless. They tell us about their success, but they take us into their backstory too, which is really where the nuggets are. Why don't we turn it to you? Just take a minute to tell us a few things about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm going to give a 1 minute overview that goes back to the early 80s. So, you know, I was a young entrepreneur, and I was watching cable TV, and the channel I was watching, Discovery Channel, all of a sudden went dark, and I timed it and checked back and forth. It was dark for 6 hours. Called the cable company, and they said, oh, that's always going to be like that because it's only an 18-hour-a-day network. 6 hours is always going to be empty. And so that's when I started. This is back in the early 80s. So I went down to the cable company, met with them, and said, can I buy that 6 hour block? And they said, well, anything's for sale, so let's do it. So, you know, I took the 6 hours a day locally on Discovery. Then we went nationwide with it, started to put products on there. So from George Foreman and Jack LaLanne and the Juicer and Tony Little and Fitness and all these different products across many different platforms, housewares, hardware, fitness, golf, fishing, you name it. So make a long story short, that's what I've been doing for 35 years, is putting products on television. And hey, then I got an amazing phone call from Mark Burnett, who asked me to go on Shark Tank, and I did a whole bunch of Shark Tank segments, 175 of them to be exact. So I've got a lot of experience in finding products and putting products on television around the world.
Well, that's amazing. I mean, my word I wrote down on my paper was wow. I know you've heard your bio spoken by others so many times. There's so much to you, yet you're so humble, Kevin. I want to build you up, though, so the audience understands what has happened here with your success. I mean, we know we call you the Shark, Emmy Award-winning TV show Shark Tank. Everybody knows about that. What's remarkable to me, Kevin, as a businessman, is you've built over 20 businesses with an aggregate of multi-billion in revenue. That's significant. You've won awards. You've created this world-leading entrepreneur network, EO, best-selling author, celebrity status, which, by the way, very few people achieve, a high-paid speaker, and it goes on and on and on. I want to read something before I turn it back to you, and it's something that was written, I think, by you or on your behalf on LinkedIn. It says, I was born to a normal family, had a normal education, grew up with the usual challenges most of us have experienced. Nothing about my past would lead you to expect that I would go on to build a business with multi-billion-dollar revenues, et cetera, but I did. And along the way, I created dozens of millionaires in this high-intensity world of direct sales and TV. I built a 30-year reputation as somebody who's fair and professional. How did I become so wealthy, successful, and influential? And I think really that's the basis of the first thing here is I'm going to turn it back to you. We want to hear about when you were just an average guy, maybe when you were a boy or a youth. What happened to you to take that journey and create this stuff?
Well, that's a great question, Tom. So this is kind of interesting. My mother was very. My mother's father, my grandfather, was a bank president,
Yeah.
and so she was very financially and fiscally responsible. My father was an entrepreneur, and he was in the restaurant business, which is an interesting bar restaurant business. It's a lot of people do well with it, but it's also a tough business because you got to work an ungodly amount of hours. My dad worked 80 hours a week. So here, when they bought, when I was born, and I'm one of 6 kids, they needed to move, get a bigger home. They bought in a very decent neighborhood, but they couldn't afford the neighborhood, so they bought the cheapest house in a nice neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay, which is a pretty smart move, because in this neighborhood, turned out that where I went to school was some of the wealthier kids in the city. One of my friends, his father owned the Cincinnati Reds baseball team. And another one of my friends, his father was the chairman and CEO of the Kroger's grocery chain. And so I would hang with these kids, and then on their 16th birthday, what were they getting? Big fancy cars. What was I getting? Nothing, right? So
Yeah.
I had to earn it. And so here all my friends they're traveling, some of them in private jets, fancy cars, big multi-million-dollar homes, and me, I'm at the other end of the spectrum. So I had to pay my way to go get all of those things. So I had to save money. I had to be an entrepreneur, basically, right? So it was the motivation to see the others. Now, they were given it. And by the way, did they respect it the way they were given it? I don't know. I mean, I think earning it is a much better way to go, to be honest with you. So, I mean, look, they were born into that. So I can't say, if you were born into a family with lots of money and you were given a lot of that money, you wouldn't look at that as a bad thing necessarily. But I can look at it and say it makes people lazy when they're given things, right? So me, I had to hustle. I had a business when I was in high school. I had a business when I was in college. I had 25 employees when I was in college. And so I was out there making it happen. And I think that's what was really good for me. And, so I just think that if most people that are out there probably listening to us weren't given a big pile of capital or cash, right? So let's just say, that they're now probably running around with people who have been very successful and they want to be successful. So now is the time that they need to put a roadmap in place to do that. For me, it happened early on because I was 15 years old and I'm watching friends of mine driving around in fancy sports cars that their parents gave them. And I'm like, but I want one of those too. Well, there's only one way to do it, and that's to go earn it. And so when I turned 16, I bought a little sports car, a fancy one, and paid cash for it from the earnings that I had made in a business that I had started. And I felt very proud of myself to be able to do that. And fast forward to today, this has given me the work ethic and the ability to continue to build businesses and create amazing futures for many people.
Well, that's pretty amazing. I mean, I'm going all over my head here on a journey. I got to acknowledge and honor what you've said. I mean, there you were 15 years old, Kevin. It blows my mind that, at that point in time, this was going on. There's a lot to be said about hanging around with people who are successful. They say, I think, that the 5 people that you hang with the most, that's what you become. And there you were in this world where you had limited to nothing and you were surrounded by this wealth. But you seem to have this innate gift, from what I heard, of seeing that you had to earn it. And I love that part of your story. I love you and what you said about your dad. My dad passed away just over a year ago. With those who read my book know my relationship with dad was not so great as I grew. But here you were with your dad working 80 hours a week as an entrepreneur business. there's a lot of kids out there that have those kind of dads, but you know what, Kevin? Those kids don't become what Kevin Harrington has done. So you have this innate gift in you. I think it's a teaching moment for everybody on the show. The other thing I thought about was Harv Eker's work about the millionaire mindset. I don't think too many people understand the difference between being a millionaire mindset and being somebody who's average. Yeah, I see a lot of people who become successful, they self-sabotage their success. You seem to be able to be resilient. We know business isn't a straight line up. I want to read something that I found, again, that was written by you. It goes like this: when something goes wrong, you need to shift your perspective, take away the word fail, and make it about change. I was going to ask you the question, what's your biggest failure? But instead, I'm going to ask you, take us to a moment where you had to change because there's some kind of a setback, and how you overcame and became more successful.
Yeah. So, I've had so many different learning curves because I've been involved in a number of different businesses, but I'll go back to one of the biggest challenges that I first ran into. I was selling products direct to the consumer, this whole world of as seen on TV, infomercials, etc. And I had about a dozen products on the air, and we're selling. We were doing $2 million a week in sales, and we had a $100 million business, very successful little company. But one day, my CFO walked in my office and says, "Oh man, I got terrible news. The bank that normally they process our credit cards that from the weekend. This was a Monday morning, and they process our cards and then put the sales into our bank account for operating capital. Generally, it's about $2 million a week. So what happened is he said the bank's holding our $2 million this week and they're not going to deposit it in our account because they're nervous about the returns that we're having in our business." And I said, "What do you mean?" And so we went back. We had one product out of a dozen that we had some quality issues from the manufacturer, and so we were every time we were shipping 10,000 pieces out, we were getting a 20% defective situation. So the bottom line is that we had to, we were being almost put out of business because of one item of a dozen items. It wasn't like this was our whole business. In fact, it was probably less than 5% of our business, but it was causing 100% of our problems with the bank. Because the bank was getting all these phone calls. "Hey, I just got this product. It doesn't work." And, "Oh, okay." So now my money's gone and I'm almost out of business because how do you operate? That was my working capital. I'm going back almost 30 years ago. And so what we learned from that is you need to have separate merchant accounts for every single product. Each one needs to be treated as a separate business. And so that one little thing that we learned has saved us tremendous amounts of angst and issues over the years since, because now if we have one item that's causing a problem, okay, shut it down, not a problem, but don't shut my whole company down, right?
Yeah.
We were able now to segment the problems and move on successfully. So this was a big learning curve way back to the early days, and something that we came through much stronger.
That's awesome. They say that in the work I do with CEOs or business owners, they say that business, family, and personal, it's all connected. I mean, what happens in the office comes to the home. What happens at home comes into the office. And there's a lot of science behind success about how the brain works and the subconscious mind. I think you know a lot of that. What about on the personal side? Is there a moment in your life, Kevin, it could be anywhere, where there was a moment of not failure, but where you realized you had to make a shift and a change, and you became more successful as a result of that?
Yeah. So, and you're saying in this is not business, this is personal?
Personal, yeah, anything personal.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think I wrote, you mentioned your book. My first book, Act Now, How I Turn Ideas into $1 Million Products. I talked about a personal experience that was very difficult. When I waited until I was in my 30s to get married, and I thought, you know what? I'm really glad, because I had seen friends get married right out of college, and they were, some of them in divorce and got married too early, and et cetera, et cetera. And I said, I'm proud of myself that I waited until I got into my 30s to get married. But as it turned out, it wasn't the right person. Okay, and so now, some people stay in a relationship forever just because that's what you're supposed to do, maybe after you get married. But I said to myself, this is something I just can't deal with. It was, I was an entrepreneur, and the woman that I had married, she's like, look, I don't like this entrepreneurship. You're traveling and you're building, and I want someone home every night. And I'm like, wow, this is such a big disconnect. She's like, I'd much rather be married to a truck driver that I can count on, than somebody that's out there building their dream businesses all over the world. And I'm like, wow, this was a person who was putting me down personally and trying to take me down. And so I literally just had to walk out the door, hand the keys. I had $1 million house with no mortgage, handed her the keys. Here you go. This is yours. And here's a bunch of cash. Goodbye. And so, sometimes you just got to do what you got to do, because you mentioned you are the product of the people that you surround yourself with. And I'll say, there's another way to say it too. Your net worth is equal to your net work. Okay. So the people that you surround yourself with, right? And so if you've got somebody that every morning when you wake up, the glass is half empty, and they got their finger in your face. How dare you tell me you're going to go out of town today? I may not be here when you come back. And it was just a terrible, and I'm talking about physical abuse in the process. As I'm walking out the door, she's punching me and hitting me. And I'm like, wow, I'm gone. And God bless, I got a beautiful 30-year-old son from that marriage, but it was not a pretty situation. And you've got to get the right people to surround yourself with. I say you need a great dream team. And the dream team starts right at home with the people that you're living with, that you're married to. And now I'm a second time married. I have an amazing wife. We've been together for almost 15 years, married like 12 years. And it's a completely different situation. So I think there's, total support there, as opposed to, the conflict on a daily basis.
Yeah. Well, you took me on a journey in my mind. First of all, to honor that and acknowledge the being vulnerable, Kevin. Not everybody would share that story openly. I think that story, when you say it, our audience sees you as not only the rock star successful guy, but there's a guy who's real. That's humility. That's a trait of a fantastic leader. So thank you for sharing that. I started thinking about that movie, The Founder, with Michael Keaton, about McDonald's. And it's funny, I remember telling my wife as we watched it, there was part of the storyline where his first wife, you could see she was sounded like your first wife. She just had limiting beliefs about success. She put him down for the amount of things he was doing and not being there for her. And eventually he had to make a decision on the dream or, finding true happiness, and he did. And there's nothing wrong with leaving people. I'm a personality type who stays with the wrong person for far too long. When I finally unwired that, I realized that, sometimes happiness comes from change. So fantastic. I want to ask you, maybe time for a couple more questions before we wrap up here. The next one is, with the infomercials. It's the gift about your infomercials that I think, because I think in a very deep way about it, is I can think about Jacqueline and some of these things, and I can remember it like yesterday, which is really interesting. And the reason why I remember that is wired to that is something in my lifeline, whether it was my parents' divorce or whether it was the birth of my daughter. There's something about those shows that are etched in my memory, attached to my lifeline in my subconscious. It's pretty amazing. I want to just ask you the question, what do you think there's a History Channel show called History Erased. And if you erase history, what do you think the world would be like today if you erased the infomercial, if it never existed?
Oh, wow. Well, I think I think, first of all, there'd be hundreds of people that would not have made all the millions that they made in the process. But see, this is the thing too, though. We all, as we built that business, we helped build other businesses, because infomercials was just the start. We then took the products to retail, CVS and Walmart and Walgreens and QVC and HSN, and we did it on a global basis. This became billions and billions of dollars around the world. So I think that there would be a much smaller universe out there of direct marketers. I mean, it's so funny. Yesterday, I was coming home from Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I did a keynote for Toyota out in the ski country in Wyoming, and I'm on my way home, and I'm reading the Wall Street Journal, and there's this whole section about this. They're saying, wow, the direct to the consumer business is on fire right now. Okay. And, Amazon, direct to the consumer, right? And all the people that sell on Amazon. And I'm like, geez, that's amazing that here we are in the year 2019, and they can talk about this being an on fire industry. Back in the early 80s, 36 years ago or so, when I started all of this, long before Amazon, long before QVC, I was creating the direct to the consumer business. And people were looking at me like, Kevin, you got to make these products, manufacture them, import them, and then put the marketing behind them, put them on TV, then take them into retail stores. You take it from idea to the consumer. What an amazing concept. And I've been doing this now for 36 years. So, this is what I love about my business. I can take any entrepreneur and take their product, give it a test, and hopefully give it a whirl in a big way across many spectrums on a global basis. So I think the world would be a much different place. It wouldn't be near as many entrepreneurs out there because in the universe that I'm in, I touched hundreds and there's dozens of me. So we've all touched thousands, and these thousands of people have created tens of thousands of products that have gone on to create many, many different businesses all around the world. So I'd hate to see the world without infomercials. That's
Me too, Kevin. There was a great study done in Canada. They asked 90-year-olds, what are your 3 top regrets at age 90? And after all the data came in, these were the 3 top. 1 was I didn't risk enough. 2 is I didn't reflect enough. 3 is I didn't leave a big enough legacy. I'm a big advocate for mental health on a volunteer basis, on a board level. I've also experienced that in my family. And, there's a lot of people out there, Kevin, who have these high pressure jobs. They're always running hard. They tie their success to the business, to what they achieve in the business. When all that is gone, sometimes there's a crash. Sometimes there's depression or issues that come up because they didn't really look past that to create a legacy. Here you are with your empire, what you've created, which is absolutely amazing. What is your legacy? When you're finished with your work, I know this is a big one, what will the world look like after you're done?
Oh, well, that's a great question. I think, well, first of all, I've started a number of organizations. One of them is EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, and we're in 150 cities, 50 plus countries, largest entrepreneurial organization in the world. And I've started several others that have similar significance. And so I believe, I'm 62 years old. I'll be 63 in a few months. And this is how I look at my life. Is that I spent the first 30 years trying to figure out what I wanted to do and what, when I grow up, what am I going to do? Right. And it was when at the end of that first 30, I was 28 years old when I invented the infomercial. I then spent the next 30 some years creating many, many infomercials, dealing with some amazing people and building billions of dollars in sales and companies. And so that's been very fulfilling for me. And now the last 30 years of my life, I'm assuming I'm going to go till 90. My father was 93 when he passed away. So let's assume I got another 30 years out there. My next 30 years is to empower and coach and mentor entrepreneurs. And so that's really the passion that I have is I want to be able to hand the baton off to my family, my kids. I've got 2 boys in the business. My one son's 30, and he's amazingly in my footsteps with many of the things that we do. And so I just believe that that I want to empower as many people as possible over these next 30 years to be able to take the ball and run with it, and hope that many of them will also give back along the way too. So I think that's how I look at my next 30 years. I got a lot of good stuff ahead of me though coming up, right?
Well, I think you do. And, it's remarkable when you mention your age. I wouldn't have guessed that from the badass picture I saw of you. That's going to be in the show art, actually, for the show. Also, they say that there's a good Gallup research that says that the next generations that are going to run the world want mentors and coaches. They don't want bosses telling them what to do. I read somewhere in your bio that you're dedicating a lot of your time going forward to being a lecturer. Way to go. I mean, that's just fantastic. That's a big legacy. My daughter, who's 21 in university back east in Canada, will listen to this and re-listen to this interview, and I hope that this will be part of your legacy. I want to ask you one more thing about your books. We don't plug books on the show. Yours are notable, so I'm going to get you to tell us at the end how to get a hold of your body of work. You wrote a book or co-authored it with Daniel Priestley called Key Person of Influence.
Yeah.
There's 5 things in there you talk about that are key. Just give us a nugget in that.
Yeah. So becoming a key person of influence is, when you think about it, it is how do you become successful in your own business, right? You got to get the awareness out. People got to know who you are. If you're in real estate, you need to be the go-to person in real estate. So you become a key person of influence when you follow the 5 steps that we have in our book. So it's a 5-step sequence. I could literally spend an hour on just this one subject, so I'm just going to do it very quick. You got to learn how to have a great pitch, how to productize yourself, how to raise your profile. And this is getting publicity and press and creating content around what you do out on social media. And then you got to be able to create amazing partnerships and publish also. So, publishing books and content and podcasts. Again, I'm kind of racing through it because we're out of time now. But the bottom line is that this is a very powerful way to take you as an entrepreneur, raise your profile, put you up as a key person of influence in your industry so that you are the go-to person. If you're in real estate, that when the bank's got a big foreclosure, they need somebody to sell it right away, they're going to call you. How do you become that first phone call, right? Or if a big celebrity's moving into your city, how are you going to make that phone ring for you, right? It's by becoming a key person of influence, you now are the go-to person in your industry. It's 5 steps, and it's the book, How to Become a Key Person of Influence, that I wrote with Daniel Priestley. So,
all right.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm gonna plug that again at the end. We're wrapping up here, but I want to honor you with 5 words. I write these down as you're talking, Kevin. They're not scripted. These are what I call leadership words. The first one is trailblazer, no question about it. Number 2 is connector and a maven. Number 3 is influencer. You're resilient from what you've done in your career and life. And the last one is energy. You probably know this, but there's this incredible energy that comes out of you. Man, I'm inspired just listening to you. That is part of your gift, brother. And certainly at your age. I want to ask everybody to get the book Act Now. And Kevin, I'm going to make a public commitment to read both your books, Act Now, Key Person of Influence, give them ratings online. And I'm going to get everybody to get those books. And Kevin, tell us how to get a hold of you and your body of work. Is there a website or something?
Yeah. It's real simple. Kevin Harrington.tv. It's Kevin Harrington. It's HARRINGTON. KevinHarrington.tv is my website. Lots of fun stuff there. There's some free opt-ins for some free reports and chapters and things. And so that's also got access. You got access to my calendar and where I'm going and the speaking events and things that I've got coming up. So that's a good place to start. And of course, if they call you, you know how to reach me. If it's one of your key contacts and they want to track me down real quick, they could get a hold of you, Tom, and through you, you could connect me and we can take care of any high-level folks you've got with any kind of special requests.
All right, that's awesome. Well, everybody, listen to the passion that you hear from Kevin. Find that true passion. Find your purpose. Live the life that you deserve and desire. And Kevin, thanks for being here today.
Tom, been a pleasure. And to everybody out there, I say thanks for listening and hope to hear from everybody. But just keep a positive attitude about the future. And, I'd love to have any of your folks come to one of our events, and they can get all those details on my website.
All right, we will do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Take care, buddy.
Thank you for listening to the Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca